Hello YouTube, and welcome back campaigners. You've seen me build a house. You've seen me build something to put the house on. You've seen me build a wall that goes around it. Now, it's time to make it a little bit homey. We put some curtains inside the doors. I built a tent, and I built a sunshade. I'm going to show you how to do it today. Stick around on Campaign Terrain. As ever, I'm your host Cross. I thank you for coming. There's going to be a bump here in a second. I want to take time. I've got links down below. I've got Patreon. I've got Buy Me a Tea, coffee, or Amazon links. Remember, the Amazon links don't cost you anything extra, but they help out the channel. So if you like what you've been seeing, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you right after the bump. And thanks for coming to Campaign Terrain. This is going to be what you need. My little buddy and I are going to show you what you need to make these tents, sunscreens, and curtains for the inside of that house like I talked about last week. So we're going to start with the tools. And the tools are really simple. You're going to need, some of these are optional. Some of everything I talk about here is going to be optional. You'll see how I do it, and you'll see why some of these could work, but you don't necessarily need them. So for tools, we're going to need a knife, nippers, little cutters, a pair of scissors, and a thin piece of cardboard. You'll see why in a minute. So that's it for tools. Tools are easy. Let's start with the materials you're going to need for the frame portion of the build. That's right here. I went through a bunch of prototypes, and I came to the conclusion that the easiest way to do this, the best way to do this, and simplest, that you only need one product, is your basic ice cream stick. Lolly stick, popsicle stick, whatever you call them. Craft stick, those. Little rounded ends, good to go. You can also use the coffee stirrers for different things as well. Now, I went through a whole bunch of things like thin dowels, thick dowels, several other options, but I came to the conclusion that really the craft sticks is the way to go, maybe with the coffee stirrers as well. For putting them together, we're going to need super glue, whichever different kind. This kind comes as a 2-pack from Dollar Tree, and this kind, I mean, you can get them anywhere. To work with the super glue, baking soda. Super glue and baking soda have a reaction, and together they end up making essentially a plastic, it's almost like concretes the stuff together. So for putting together the wood items, we're going to have baking soda and super glue. Okay, and that's it. For the fabrics that go on top, we're not actually using fabric. My preferred method for this is wet wipes. Now, these particular ones happen to stretch one direction, but not the other. That's why I'm using them. I'm going to use the stretch sideways so I can get it to go where I need to on the building, but so it won't stretch a long way, so it doesn't ever it doesn't ever extend past the bottom. It never gets stretched out. These happen to be from a hot wing restaurant, and are the wet naps they give you after your hands are all covered in, buffalo sauce. So you can also use baby wipes, dried out. I had some laying around, so I tried using those, but I'm still preferring these. You can also use some regular paper towels, and they get coated in glue. That's why it's stiff right here. And a paper towel will work. You just have to watch out whether you want this texture or not on it. So paper towels, wet wipes, and handy wipes. To put the fabrics together, we're going to need regular PVA that can help to hold the fabrics into place. You can also use the Fitty Fitty. That's the half white glue, half PVA, half water, and that strengthens up the wet wipe and makes it sturdier. You can see this one here, and in fact that removes all of the stretch out of this. So the glue at the end will end up giving it a lot more structural stability. Okay, once we've got it glued on, then and you can also use the tacky glue if you'd rather than just the regular white glue. So either one of those. And after we're done, you're going to want some kind of wash. This one's sort of bluish. I think I'm going to make a couple of tints in that color. And this is my brown wash you see me using other stuff. Now these are going to get really watered down because I don't necessarily want the tint to be that dark. However, I'm about to show you a bunch of stills that I'm working from and my mentality on this. Now, that said, I apologize in advance if anybody is offended by any of the stuff I'm building tonight. I promise you, I am not trying to culturally appropriate anybody's lifestyles or anything like that. The tints I'm making tonight are, to the best of my ability, generic. They would work in a desert tent. They are not designed to be any earthly, any human type of tent. So these are all fantasy tent. So I apologize in advance if anybody gets upset at it, but these are what the images I'm working from. Enjoy these pictures for a second. I'm going to show you these pictures, then there'll be the bump, and then I will be back to start in on making the wooden frames. Let me show you some of the prototypes I worked on, working this out to where I decided that basic and small was the best way to go. Wow, I got that one all kinds of wonky. That's all right. I've got several others to show you. So I worked with really ornate and elaborate. I used hot glue for this one. I built an inner frame for it, and it would look great. I'm never going to finish it because it is way more than I need. I suppose if I needed like the prince or the overlord or battle, whatever, I might make the bigger, nicer tent. And you could do it the same way, but I'm not going to use this one for now. Now, here's one. You'll see the doors come into play later. We will need either a couple of small dowels later or a couple more of the shorter legs later, but that's in just a moment. So this one I put together all with hot glue, and hot glue is my preferred glue. Anybody who watches the channel knows that, and this worked pretty well. This is pretty sturdy and worked all right. It is far more brittle than the super glue, so I am not using it because, as you can see, it's super wiggly, so we're not using that one. I tried using white glue. I'm still waiting on this to dry. It's been like 3 days, and the glue is not yet fully cured. I don't know why people like white glue for stuff like this. This is taking forever. Now, admittedly, it is cold down here in my basement, but no. Just no. Okay, here's one that I did with the super glue method that we're about to use, but this has the matchstick legs, and as you can see, this one is much sturdier all around than the hot glue, which I hate to say because I loves me some hot glue. As you can see, you don't have to build this size. You don't have to build this size. You don't have to build this size. You can make them any size you want. I'm just going to show you a basic technique today. So this is what we're building. We're going to take our piece of cardboard. You want to fold that roughly in half. Doesn't really have to be. The reason for that is I fold it along the grain. It just makes it easier. The reason for that is after we've used the baking soda, as you can see, it's going to get all over this cardboard. When we're done, we can just take it, fold it in half, and put it back here. But basically, we're using the cardboard flat, just with the crease in it. I find it easier to put the crease on beforehand. Otherwise, I throw powder everywhere. Okay. We're going to use super glue. Like I said, this kind comes in a 2-pack for $1 from Dollar Tree. And I made all of those prototypes that use super glue with less than one of these bottles. So it goes a long way. You just need a little drop here and a little drop there. Okay. We are going to want to take one of our sides, our fronts and backs, and we're going to sit that down with a little bit of baking soda on our board. That's just to pull from. That we're not using that pile as such. Okay, take a little bit of baking soda and put it at the end of the piece, and just a little bit, just press it down. You don't want it too thick a pile, but you want some on each end. The reason is the super glue reacts with the baking soda and makes a really hard, almost like a plastic. Now, when the two go together, they work great. So we're not going to put any baking soda on the leg, and we're not going to put any, or the upright, and we're not going to put any super glue directly onto the top rail. We're just going to put a little bit here. You want to get that about craft stick thickness down so that it creates a square of glue in there, and then line it up, press it into place. Now this takes a little bit. Some super glue is set up much faster than others. Others take a few seconds. So hold it in place like this, count to 10, count to 15, and by that point, it should be done. Nope. See, it wasn't that time. I let go too quick. So, again, baking soda at the end. Super glue on the stick. And press into place. You want to line that up. You want to get that as square as possible so that they stand up a little bit. And you can see that one of mine gets a little wonky and one of mine is much better. So just try to keep those straight, but it's not going to matter in the end. You're going to be plunking this down on the table and then it's just going to stay there. Okay, that should be done by now. Okay, yes it is, and that is set for life. I guarantee you that's not coming loose. However, if you want to, you can always run a little more glue in the cracks and put a little more baking soda in there if you want to, but it's really not necessary. But I think that will give you an example. You can kind of see how that sets up like a plastic. All right, so do that again on the other side. And I'm going to go through this really quick. I'm going to probably fast forward all this video for you. That's the sides built. Now we're going to put, the ends built, the front and rear. So now we're going to put the sides on. If you have anything standing proud or standing out of the way and you want to trim it off, you can go ahead and do that. It's really not all that necessary, but just to show you, once it's on there, come along and trim it off. Now, these are all going to be a little different each time, so if it doesn't come out perfect, it's perfect. So I like to take the uprights, the legs, and put them on the inside of the tent. I don't want them standing outside the frame. I want them standing inside the frame. So what I do is I'm going to take the sides, and these I only do one at a time. And again, a little bit on the end of the stick. Now this time we're going to put this, oops, that one definitely needs trimming off. You want that as smooth as possible on that outside edge. Then you want to take that and put a fairly decent little drop on there because you want it to soak into the soda, baking soda, the bicarb. And then you just take it, line it up, and press it into place. And again, we're going to have to hold that for a few seconds. Sorry about that. A bit of a wait here. But then once it's set up, it's going to be stuck for life. So, in this case, stuck for life to me, no. And again, if you want, you don't have to, but if you want, you can always come by and put a little bit more in to the different little seams, cracks. But this one looks like it's pretty good. So, that's that. I'm gonna fast forward through this video. I'm gonna put the rest of them together the same way. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stick this one on here. Then I'm gonna put the other one down. I'm gonna stick one end. And then I'm going to place the other one. I'm going to hold it in place so that I can make sure that I've got the other piece lined up with it. Okay, the fabric, or cloth as it were, or paper as it were, but technically we're supposed to be fabric for the sides of the tent. So we are going to need it to be the height of the tent for the sides and then a square a little bit larger than the top. But the sides we already know are 2.5 inches, so we'll start with those. So I tried using a straight edge and a knife on this, but I found that the tip of the knife just dragged the wet wipe across the table and ended up stretching it out, so that is not my preferred method. So we're going to go ahead with scissors here. Again, none of this has to be absolutely perfect, especially if you're putting this on a base and you can hide the bottom edge of the curtain. We're just trying to get close here. So that's about 2.5 inches, and I'm going to do that again. Now this one just happens to be right at 7.5 inches, so it pretty much makes what I need it, but not quite. It is just so short and it's so aggravating. But take another one again. I'm using the grid on my board to do this, but you could do this with a ruler, straight edge. You could use one of those rolling cutters, which would probably work really great, but I can't seem to find mine. And 2.5 inches. Now I find that if I take it and I fold it over and do that, it gets crooked. It wants to slide on me, but I'm still going to try it here just to show you what I'm talking about. So, got that. See, that edge doesn't want to line up. So, there we go. Got the edge lined up as well as I can. And get the 2.5 inch mark. And as you can see, parts of that are narrower than other parts of that. But like I said, we're just trying to get close. Okay, now to have a door on the front that's an actual door, we're going to need to add 2 more of those pieces I talked about. So that's the uprights, and those are going to be attached just like I did here. Now you could also use dowel rods or whichever, but on these, a figure is on a 1 inch base, so I made the door 1.5 inches wide. So take 2 popsicle sticks and probably cut them both at once. I guess not. That's our door. Same deal as before. Just trying to show you. I'm specifically doing this on camera to show you that this takes no time. It's taking far longer to make this than it would to actually to show you than it would actually make it. Okay, so I'm going to take the center mark. This is 4 inches wide. I'm going to take the center mark, and I'm going to go 3/4 of an inch to either side to get my 1.5 inches. And I want those to be the inside edge of the door. So I want the door to be placed here, not here, right there. You can use whatever glue you want to attach this fabric along the edge of the tent. I happen to always prefer hot glue, so I'm going to use it. I know I didn't show you that at the beginning of the show, but that's all right. Now, we're going to go along the inside of the door. And got to glue that in sort of funky. So take that and push it so it's essentially covering the doorway. Line it up at the bottom of the leg and push that into the hot glue. Now, I always use mine on low. You may want to push this in with, say, a popsicle stick, something like that. And should stick if you actually get the glue on there. I make the mistakes so you don't have to. Okay. Now, all that does is hide that leg. Now you can make this as billowing and full as you want, but you don't have to. You can leave it, you can pull it snug if you want like a nice military style box tent, or you can put in a bunch of different pleats into it. And all you have to do is whatever your glue is of choice, you just take and put along the top and press your fabric into it. And I tend to loosen it a little. I just sort of push it in, and I'm not actually trying to make like folds and pleats. I just want it to have a little bit of volume. So a little bit of hot glue. Now this stuff is stretchy enough that it just comes right around this corner of the door right here with no problem at all. And you just attach it to the glue and keep going. I'm going to go the rest of the way around this, wrap it onto the inside and show you, and put it on the inside of that door, and then I will be back in just a moment to show you that when we're ready to move to the next step. Something came up and it's a bit of a learning experience, so I'm happy it did. I'm going to show you right here where this piece ends, and I'm going to have to attach another one. All I'm going to do is run a bit of hot glue along the one piece so that I can press it flat. I don't know when I got a hot glue thread in my way. So line of glue along on that, and then lay just the edge of the other fabric on it, and again press that into place. As I said, you may want to use a stick to do that. You may do it by hand. I usually do it by hand. I'm just showing you. Easy enough. Press it in with a popsicle stick, and that's it. Now, if you want, you can come back and trim off this little edge, but that's all going to end up being covered by the glue and washes later, so you don't have to, but you can come by and take off this little edge if you want, but it is minuscule if you do it right. So I'm going to continue the rest of the way around, wrap that door. I'll be right back. Right, we're ready to put the top on our tent. Turn it into a big top tent. Okay, now you're going to want it to lay over this a little bit to cover up all of the glue and everything up here. So what you want to do is lay it down. I don't have a preference for which way the stretchy side goes. If you're using one of the wet wipes that doesn't stretch, that's, whichever way, and you can just lay it down and make sure that you've got enough clearance all the way around. So I'm usually going to give about a 1/2 inch to 3/4, because that's going to be just enough to cover that board without interfering with, say, like flapping in the faces of anybody going in and out of the tent. So just want to do a little bit around it, and this is, I can't show you from the other side, sorry about that, but you get the idea. I cut the same distance out on this other side over here, so let me show you on this side. Okay, now This, remember I said this, you can have pleated and have all the gather in it that you want. On this, you probably don't want that because you end up with the wrinkles running across the tent. So you want this sort of stretched and flat. And all we're going to do, hot glue or white glue. Now with white glue, you're just going to have to wait longer. Make sure to use some parchment paper or something under it so it doesn't stick. I do not suggest super glue for this because it makes the fabric really crunchy and plasticky. So take your front or your back, it doesn't really matter. We're going to start on the sides. But I'm going to take my front and I'm going to run that bead of hot glue all the way across there. As you can see, it looks a little bit like a weird corrugated shed. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the sides, we're going to take the corner diagonal from the building, run a slight bit of glue, press that into place to hold it down on each of the four corners. While I'm doing this, a little bit of trivia. I run a homebrew campaign, and in my world, most of the desert dwellers are either a type of wild elf, or I've got two different reptilian races, and they're not dragonborn or anything like that. They're just reptiles. They're just lizards, and so that's who's going to be using this. So when I say I don't want this to look like anything human dwelling, I mean it. I really don't. It's not going to end up looking like it. Okay. So then, at each corner, we're just going to take that and sort of fold that pleat in like that. And you can run glue all the way along if you want. I usually just put a drop inside right here, all the way along there, because it's actually going to be hitting both sides of that fold, and just press that and hold it into place. And I find that I do not need any along here because that pleat holds it in place. It's almost like military corners on your bed. Okay, for the curtains, you want to take two pieces of fabric the same length as before, that 2.5 inch for the height of your tent or however tall you made it. You want to get them about 1.25 inches wide. So between the two of them, that's 2.5 inches to cover our 1.5 inch spot. So you want to take another piece of stick at least as wide as the door and a little bit. So the door's 1.5 inches, so I'd go at least 2 inches. This one happens to be 3 inches. I literally had it laying around, that's why I used it. Now, you want these to look like they've been pulled back. You can actually put a piece of string around these and tie them out of the way if you want. I'm not going to bother with that. Then you want to take that and bead of glue along the entire board on the same side as the fabric. You want to reach inside the tent, center that, and press it against the inside frame. Depending on your fabric and how it falls, you may want to glue it to the side, so I'm going to do that on this one. And that, you just push the fabric out of the way, run a bead of glue down the side of the door, inside of the door, excuse me, said that wrong. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going up the inside of the door there. I'm taking that fabric and just running along that. I'm going to call it quits for tonight. Tomorrow we'll come back and we'll stain these. Or actually we'll glue these and then stain these. Time to get these toughened up. Now, you're going to get a lot of glue everywhere, so what you're going to want to do is put on something where you know it's not going to stick. I'm using this little cutting board because I know that even if the bottom of this sticks down, I can still cut it loose. Now this part here, the fabric, will be able to peel free. We're either going to put on the 50-50, which is the half and half. We can put that on directly on, or you can, if you really want, put on straight PVA and mush it in. If you want to use a spray bottle, This is much less than 50-50. This is about a 25 or 30% glue to water ratio. Here on these flaps, we're going to want them to not necessarily stick to each other, but I don't know of an easy way to prevent that. So I'm going to go ahead and take my chances on that, and I think I can make this work. If nothing else, I will just open up the fabrics like that and enjoy the wrinkles that are in it when it's done. I'm going to take the spray and just spray it onto the fabric like that. And you really want it to coat everywhere. So any place where you see a dry spot, you want to hit it so that that gets wet. So I'm actually going to put a piece of cardboard under this so they don't get glue all over my tabletop. I'm going to use the 50-50 and just spread it by hand. I'm going to move this one out of the way. This other one over here, I've already done that too. Now, the string, I'll show you what that's about in a minute, but I've already added the glue to this, and as you can see, this fabric is much more rigid. So for this one, we're done with the glue, and we've already done it on the other one, so we're done with the glue at this point. Okay, this is a much more advanced style of tent. On this, the sides can roll up, and I've created these little loops with a ring on them and these pegs on the inside. It'll hold the curtain up, and you can do that to all four sides. So you can have it open, you could cover the sun on one side or maybe two sides, you could have it as a privacy shield so you could drop it if they were having a private conference, you could just use it as a tent and drop it all the way around. So what I'm going to do is drop those back down. Okay. That's going to be too dark. Let me get a bowl real quick. So that's going to be way too dark. Let me go ahead and add just a little of that. And a lot of water. Thin that out, mix it up a little. And then, see if that's a little thinner. Yeah, there we go. Make a nice, natural looking sort of canvas look to it. It's a little darker than I wanted, but I can live with it, and it may or may not lighten up when it dries. And as you can see, you can just be pretty liberal with this, especially if you did not use white glue for your frame, because if you did use white glue, it's possible that you can reactivate your glue, sort of melt your glue, so probably not good if you used white glue. But this one's got all hot glue and super glue, so I'm just going to go ahead and slather this everywhere. Alrighty, I think that's good. I'm going to go put the, all of this one here, and these here in front of a fan to dry, and I will see you in just a few seconds with these finished and ready to go. The little sunshade for the top, that one's finished. Now we got to get the doors inside. So let me get the rest of these out of the way here. Just gonna need the doors in the house. Okay, like I said before, these go in just like the others. We're going to put the glue on the side with the fabric. I made sure to put the knots on the back so they didn't show on the front, just a little clean looking twine on the front. You don't have to put a string on it, you can just leave it hanging down however you want. And we want to make sure that those get to be at the right height. So I'm just going to push those in and push them up until they reach about that level. You can see this little curtains hanging inside, and nothing makes a house a home like accoutrements. So, house is ready to go. Gun back for safety. Just a second. I'll be back to have a quick wrap up. See you in just a moment. There you have it, campaigners. So far, we've made a plot of land, garden wall, house, shade, curtains, stairs to get on top of the house. It's almost an entire homestead. Over the next, I hope you're not getting too bored of the desert. So over the next couple weeks, I'm going to show you how to make these little clumps with the succulents. I'm going to show you how to make some palm trees. And I'm going to show you how to make those gardens I said were going to be inside here. Those little plots with the vegetables growing on them. So keep watching over the next 3 weeks to get those. And then I've got a lot of great things planned in the future. If you've been liking what I've been bringing you, and you want to see more, like, share, subscribe. You know how that goes. If you want to support the channel, got a Patreon. I've got a Buy Me a Coffee. In fact, for me, it'll be Buy Me a Tea. And there's also going to be some Amazon links down below. Those don't cost you anything extra, but they help out the channel if you click on that link and then buy something. So I hope you do. And we'll catch you on the next time. As ever, my name is Cross. I'm your host here on Campaign Terrain. I love you. And until next time, I wish you luck in your campaign. Thanks for coming.